Well, good day and welcome to you. It is August the 29th, and I hope you are having a better day than the NASA folks are having right at this moment in time, because they just realized they are not shooting the Artemis rocket off to the moon today. And I'm sure a lot of them are calling home saying that they're not going to be coming home for a little while. There's going to be a lot of sleep-deprived NASA engineers for the next few weeks until they can figure out how to get this candle off the ground. But anyway, I know they will at some point, and they'll get us back to the moon at some point. But anyway, hopefully you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. If you've never been here before, I want to welcome you back if you have. And quickly point out, if you want to know more about this information, if you want to see if there's anything to this information for yourself or whatever, I have included links to websites that give you really good background information about what we talk about. So you can take the time to look into it if you want. All right, now I also would like to give a shout out to those people who have commented since the last video: Teddy 2.0, Smoke Doja, and Thomas Lynch. Thank you, everybody. Now, I am going to address Teddy 2.0's comment, but I want to also I want to address Smoke Doja's. I'm not going to read it out because it is kind of long. You can read it if you want, but I have said to myself from time to time, reading comments that come my way on this channel, that I'm amazed that two people can have two totally different experiences about this information. And, you know, whether somebody who's maybe perhaps been at it for a while or heard this information for a little while in the year 2022 after hearing it for decades or whatever, one person's still really hopeful about it, the other one isn't. Now, I'm not saying that Smoke Doja believed this at some point, but there are a lot of people who have commented over the years who are starting to become cynical about this information. And they lash out at Ben, who's dead. He can't even comment and retort. You know, they lash out at me for talking about this information, saying there's nothing to this, which, you know, you can believe whatever you want to believe. That's not the point. But the point is that you might have believed it before and now you don't, right? And even though I've been at this for probably just as long or longer than most people, I'm not cynical about this information. You know, to some degree, you can look out into the world and see the news and see a lot of the impact that Maitreya is having on the world. You know, I've talked about it with the people marching against Putin in Russia. You know, the marches that continue to go on here in the United States for justice, for social justice, for ecological justice and so forth are a direct result, I think, of Maitreya being in the world. But you might not, right? And then there's other things like the Norwegian spiral that happened right before Ben made the announcement that Maitreya gave an interview on TV. Clearly something happened. It was a strange phenomena. But if you know this information and you trust Ben, then you would say, okay, well, that's a UFO or something, right? But there's a lot of experience and there's a lot of things that have happened that you might miss because you're cynical, right? Now, that's okay. You know, I understand why somebody might not believe this information anymore, but why would somebody like myself, and I'm not alone in this, okay, and I think even Teddy 2.0 might be like this to some degree based on what he said, but why are our experiences different? Why, you know, I put a lot of money into this to try to get the word out over the years. I've spent a lot of time doing this. And a lot of people who believe this at some point and are now very angry that it hasn't happened, they haven't done anything, right? They haven't put any money into this, wasted any time. So what are you mad about, right? I should be the one that's really mad, really. And I really think it boils down to doing something about it, to serving in some kind of way. And when you serve, you forget not only about yourself, but you forget about your own petty problems. And then if you know this information and you're serving in some way, shape, or form, you forget about the fact that it's taken a lot longer than you might think, right? But you're working towards something. Service changes a person. Maitreya himself said in one of his messages, he said, "Many are the ways to serve, my friends. Your job is to find that and serve. And when you do, you lose all sense of your own personal problems. And you find that's real joy, as far as I'm concerned, is in service. And if you don't believe me, try it and see. But you'll forget about stuff like this. And especially if you're just somebody who's lashing out at me for what? You know, about talking about some information, right? I don't make any money off this. I'm not grifting people for this or whatever they say, you know. So what are you mad at me about, right? If you were serving, you wouldn't even care, right? So anyway, just something to think about. Now, I do want to read Teddy 2.0's comment because I do think it's significant. Because he talks about a dream experience, and I don't normally talk about dream experiences, but he said, I had a dream vision of sitting at Maitreya's feet in the early 90s with a large group of people in white robes. I looked up at him, and he was exerting some significant concentration effort, like someone lifting a barbell that is a little heavier than he could handle, which I think was pulling us all into the conscious awareness of being awake in the dream. And then my vision zoomed in for a close-up of his mouth and beard. After that, I had numerous dreams of alternate realities where the day of declaration has already happened, and one where he comes out around 2025. After a period, announced that he was going to walk around the world so every eye would have a chance to see him. I went out to a bike path near my home on the day he was pinpointed to be going by my home, and went out and ran along with him for several yards and cried like a little girl. As I approached, he raised his hand in the avatar wave in blessing. So I got that going for me. Teddy, thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate it, because I don't normally talk about dream experiences, but they are one of the many signs of hope, one of the many signs of the awaited teacher coming back. So I really do appreciate it. And my mother had a dream experience that I was fortunate enough to ask Ben about. My parents went through a divorce in the early 80s, and my mother did not take it very well. She became very depressed. She was, of course, very stressed at the time because she was a single mother for the first time. She had to worry about paying the bills, and where's that going to come from? Because she was a school teacher, and that's what she was doing, and they don't make much money. So she was very worried about all that stuff. And my brother and I were not very supportive. And it was touch and go for my mother for a while, for sure. And she had a dream when I was a young man, and I remember her telling me this dream. And I remember feeling her sincerity and seeing her face, and she almost was brought to tears when she was talking about this dream. But she said that this man came to her in a dream. He had red hair and blue eyes. That's the way she described him, a very handsome fella. Grabbed her by the hands and said, Linda, even though we can't be together, I just want to let you know I love you for who you are. And just that little dream changed her life, got her through so much difficulty in her life many years after that. And she talked about it all the time after that. And she even mentioned it recently to me and so forth. But I was fortunate enough, I was driving Benjamin Creme around when he was here giving a lecture some years ago. I'd asked my mother if it was okay if I asked him, and she said yes. And I asked Benjamin Creme, and he said it was the Master Jesus who communicated her in this dream state. So when I told my mother that I had asked Ben, she was like, well, who was it? And I told her it was the Master Jesus, and her response was, huh. But these masters communicate to us in different ways, and this is one very easy, simple way that they can do it. And millions upon millions of people have had dream experiences from all walks of life, all different types of religious and cultural backgrounds in all around the world have had dream experiences. And now doctors say that, we all dream every night that we go to sleep, right? We remember some dreams, other dreams we don't, but we're dreaming every night. And then if we're lucky, we have this one dream like you had or like my mother has that's, very significant and changed your life. And it may be from one of these masters. It might be from Maitreya. It might not, but a lot of times it is. And there's a different quality to that dream, I'm sure, for you when you had it than the other dreams you had maybe that week. I doubt you remember any of the other dreams that you had, but this one was very memorable, right? My mother never ever really talked about any dreams that she had, but she talked about this one over and over again. And none of the other dreams that she ever had that same kind of impact on her life like this one did. So quite extraordinary stuff. But I did want to say this, is the dream experiences, are personal to you, right? Just like people being saved by an accident is personal to that individual. But there are other miracles, such as crosses of light, weeping icons, visions of the Madonna, healing waters, the Hindu milk miracle, to name a few, that were reported by the media and quite well known and have been going on for years. And these miracles, I think, if you look at it from a certain perspective, are telling us that we are one family, because they are giving a lot of us hope, and the people who are having these experiences are feeling more uplifted for the future, just as I'm sure you were, just as my mom was by having that experience. And it didn't matter whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist or someone who didn't practice religion at all or whatever. we've all been kind of having these experiences to some degree. And they're happening, like I said, all over the world in all walks of life. And so you can't pin it down to just the Christians are having these and nobody else. So if that was the case and just the Christians were having experiences, then I could understand where they were saying, you know, they got it right and everybody else has got it wrong. But these miracles are should be telling all of us that, no, that's not true. You know, the hope for mankind is for all of mankind. You know, I remember when I saw the crosses of light, which is one of the miracles that happened. It's a holographic cross that appears in a window. Started in El Monte, California, in people's homes. The only church that I know of that had one was a church in Knoxville, Tennessee. And back in the mid-90s, I took 2 visits up there. First, I met the preacher, Joe Bullard, and then the next time I went up there just to kind of walk around. And in both instances, whether it was Joe Bullard or the people that were given the tours the second time around, they were so uplifted for the future about these miracles that were happening in these windows. And Joe Bullard saw the impact that it had on people that were coming to the church to see these crosses, whether they were Christian or not. And he wanted to open the whole church up so people could come from wherever they wanted to come to and stay as long as they want and experience these as a miracle. And I think he was right. Now, there are people that disagree with him in his church, and unfortunately there was a huge argument between the two of them, and eventually, rather than letting Joe Bullard win, they decided to just destroy all the windows. It was a tragedy. But up until that point, you know, thousands upon thousands of people traveled to Knoxville, Tennessee, because they had heard it on the news or saw it in the newspaper or whatever like this, went up there to see these crosses, and it was giving them hope. You know, I was experiencing the same hope that the people who were members of these churches was experiencing, or other Christians that were coming up there experiencing it. They didn't believe what I believed them to be. Didn't matter. You know what I mean? But both of us were felt more uplifted for the future. So I feel like they're showing us that we are one. And then if you look at the Hindu milk miracle that happened not long after that, Hindus in India blown away by this incredible miracle of the disappearing milk in front of the statues of Ganesh. Not a Christian miracle, right? It was a Hindu. It was a miracle for the Hindus. So quite extraordinary stuff. But these miracles, some of them have healing qualities, some of them don't. But it was just, you know, to stand in this little church and see these crosses of light in these windows, quite extraordinary stuff. So anyway, those who search for signs will find them. You know, if you keep searching for them, you will see miracles like this all over the place, or you'll see them in your own life for individual reasons. And so I do hope that you talking about your dream experience, Teddy, and me talking about it on this channel, that it will trigger some people's memories. And if you do have a dream experience you want to share or experience with one of these miracles, by all means, post your comment and we'll talk about it maybe in the next video. So thank you very much for that. Now, in terms of the Day of Declaration that you spoke of, okay, I want to talk about this. Not many people might know what this really is. If you haven't heard this information before, I've talked about the Day of Declaration. If you go to the Share International site, they talk about the Day of Declaration there. But it's a day like no other days. But it's a day that Maitreya is supposed to declare himself as Maitreya. Now, he has been on TV for 12 years now, but not using the name Maitreya. And he's only being introduced as an ordinary person. And he can speak very simply. So apparently he's speaking so simply that people aren't picking up on the fact that that is Maitreya. But as time goes on, as the problems mount, I'm sure as we start to really feel the stress and the strain of these problems and the fact that our leaders are doing nothing about it because they just keep bickering back and forth, very corrupt, not listening to us, those kind of things. Eventually Maitreya's head's going to kind of peek above the horizon a little bit, and he's going to start speaking in a way that we might start to recognize him a little bit better. But even then, we won't know for sure if that's Maitreya or not. We might be about 95% sure, but we might not know. Not until the Day of Declaration is he ever going to mention that he is Maitreya. Even if he's asked before then, he's not going to confirm it nor deny it. But on that day, it is said that will be a day like no other day. But he will eventually draw enough attention to himself as a figure that's speaking for humanity, that's speaking what we all want, which is saving the environment, bringing justice, bringing peace, ending hunger, and that kind of thing, that the people will demand from their news agencies him an opportunity to speak to us all at one time. And eventually the will of the people will win out, and the news media, as corrupt as they are, will allow him to speak. And he'll come before the world at that time and step to the podium. All the cameras will be linked for this one moment. In fact, actually, Benjamin Creme's master said all the communication satellites in the world are put up there for this one event, actually. That's how important this event is for the fate and the future of humanity. So they're there for that reason. Anyway, but when he speaks to humanity, we will not hear his voice through the speakers. We will hear it inwardly in our head. Everybody above the age of 14, wherever you are in the world, you'll hear his message in your own language, in your own head. And he will speak to us, but we will feel it from his perspective. So it won't be like he's speaking to us. We'll be feeling it along with him, is the way I understand it to be. He'll even give us some visions of the future. And I'm sure he'll give us one vision that we will see and we will feel it just as Maitreya feels it, because he sees this as a potential future for us. If we do not accept the principle of sharing, we continue on the way that we're doing, what the future that awaits us will be, which is the total annihilation of everyone on our planet. We will feel the pain and the anguish of killing off our only planetary home because we didn't take action. And we'll feel it as he feels it. And so then we'll see it like that. And then he'll show us another vision of the future, which is, he says we will eventually choose, but at that time we will have to make the choice, but we will feel it and see what it's like if we do accept the principle of sharing. We will see love from his perspective start to manifest amongst the nations and amongst the peoples of those nations and so forth. And then we'll see what life's like thousands of years from now when the principle of love is manifesting perfectly on this planet, what that will mean for all of us. So that's one portion of the Day of Declaration. The other thing Maitreya said himself, he said it will be as if his love embraces all of humanity. We'll feel it even physically. And then the third miracle that will happen on that day is thousands upon thousands, maybe even millions upon millions of people will be cured from very, very serious, terminal, life-threatening illnesses. They'll just be healed from it. And Benjamin Creme used to say at the end of every one of his lectures, he said that those three reasons, we will know that that man, and only that man, is Maitreya. So that's the Day of Declaration. So, whether it happens on or before 2025, well, I sure hope so, but I guess it could happen after that. But it's in the not so distant future. It's not like it's happening hundreds of years from now. You know what I mean? It's going to have to happen before then. But it is not a question of if, but it's a question of when, according to the masters. So we just have to be patient and wait. Now, and in the meantime, do something, about all the problems in the world. But the other thing I want to say is your dream's not far off in terms of him walking the earth so everyone can see him. I don't know if he's necessarily going to walk it, but he is going to visit every country, and people will flock by the thousands to see him and hear him speak in whatever town they're in or whatever like this. But the one thing that I also wanted to end it with, when you said you wanted to, you cried like a little girl, which I know women don't like it when guys say that, you know what I mean? But I know what you mean. I'm a guy, right? When a guy says they cried like a little girl, it's like they lose all sense of their masculinity and they just are truly sincere in their emotions and they cry, right? I mean, it's like at that point, they don't care if somebody sees them crying, I guess. And, for most people, it's probably pretty pathetic to see a grown man cry. Not so much a little girl, but you see a little girl cry, you don't feel that's pathetic, right? You feel sorry for the girl, right? But I understand what you're saying. But the one thing that the point I'm trying to make is when Benjamin Creme was asked by Maitreya to bring this information to the public, Maitreya gave him a vision of how the masters see time, and Ben described it as he was sitting in this circle of light. And on one side, he could see all the events of the past happening, and he could pick out which ones he wanted to see and recognize. And he said a lot of historical figures and stuff he could see doing what they were doing and saying what they were saying as it was happening right now. He could see it. And then he said he didn't have to turn his head, and he could also see what was going to happen in the future and all the things that were going to happen in the future once Maitreya comes out, how the world was going to change and so forth. And he said at the same time he was filled with all the love of humanity at the same time. But the one thing that he said about crying, right, is my point. He said how did he say it? He said he saw people running down the street after seeing Maitreya in person for the first time, crying, because they realized for the first time that their life actually mattered. And you think about all the people who are on drugs, all the people who live hopeless and just kind of despondent lives, because they realize that their life, they think that their life doesn't matter, but a lot of us don't think our life really matters. We don't know the value that we truly have as being divine beings in incarnation like we will know in the future. But it will awaken humanity up and people up to the fact that they actually matter when they see Maitreya speak to them. Because when Maitreya speaks, he speaks heart to heart with no agenda, whether it's hidden or overt. It's a one-to-one, speaking in that way, very sincere, very simple, very easy to understand, but heart to heart. But his love, because of who he is, being the Christ, will awaken that love and that truth within the hearts of the listener. For some of us, it will make us realize that our life actually matters. For others, it will make us realize that we need to do more and see more and do something about this world and so forth. But it will affect humanity in a way that we have no idea really truly what it will do, other than the fact that it will bring about peace and awaken the hearts and minds of every single person on this planet eventually. So I do thank you for your comment, everybody, and I look forward to comments and questions in the future. You guys take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.